Welcome back to Bombastic Nation and Ting and Ting and Ting. I'm Mr. Giant and I'm back with some more vibes for you. Yes, you know what I mean? And if you're tuning in, thanks for tuning in. If not, tell a friend. But the one we're going to do right now is called How Otto Von Bismarck Reshaped Europe. Now, I did a series on Otto von Bismarck, and before that, I didn't know who he was or anything like that. So it just told the story of him and his accomplishments and stuff, and how he was treated by other politicians and stuff like that. Uh, this one will tell how he shaped, probably more in sync explanation of how he helped shape Europe. You understand? Let's go ahead and YouTube and simmer and see what's going on here with brother von Bismarck.
Here's a German dude with a mustache. He was a chancellor and founder of a new German Reich. He restricted freedom of press, was against clergy, and his victorious military strategy was called Blitzkrieg. Now, quote, hammer the Poles until they despair of living. Of course, we're talking about Otto von Bismarck.
I thought they were describing Hitler there. Let's see how they spin this.
Family of Junkers, which I guess means that they were famous for their picking up garbage skills. Oh wait, he was a Junker? So a land-owning nobleman, okay. Basically, Bismarck grew up in your classic Junker Prussian family, alright? Before becoming important and interesting, Otto went to college and had a failed stint with the army. Bismarck found himself as a newly chosen representative in Prussian government. Now, if you think Prussia is just Russia with a speech impediment, well, it's not. This is Germany today. This is Germany back in Bismarck times. Imagine it being like the USA, just without the U. If you're into revolution...
See, I'll be honest with you, before I started watching all of these, I never heard anything about Prussia. Oh, nor had I heard anything about Otto von Bismarck. And I'm glad I started watching this because, I mean, this guy seemed to have been important in the shaping of the European ideology in general, or building Europe or something like that. So I'm pretty glad that he seemed to be a very important part of that history there.
Since you should travel back in time to 1848. Over 50 European countries were affected that year, including Prussia. Liberals wanted a new constitution, a different voting system, and less power to the king. All this was a big no-no for the monarchist Bismarck. The king, however, didn't want to fight the revolution and was ready to compromise. Thankfully for Bismarck, the liberals had internal issues, and the lenient king didn't knock around very long. So, when the king died, they found a new one that was alive, and clearly did not know how to grow a beard. That new guy, King Wilhelm I, appointed these three dudes. Chief of Staff, Helmut von Moltke. Minister of War, Albrecht von Roon. And Minister-President, as well as Foreign Minister, Otto von Bismarck. This trio were key to the unification of Germany and the creation of a second German Reich. King Wilhelm kind of just existed with Bismarck pulling all the strings. Wilhelm danced while Otto made money moves. I don't know how and if this analogy works, but let's just go with it, okay? At the time, the Austrian Empire was the leading state among the German population. The first thing you'll notice about Austria is that it's not Prussia, so not where Bismarck was from. Otto, once against the unification, now wanted to take over control from Austria and make Prussia the leading German state. It took him 3 wars and 8 years to achieve this. To start things off, the Danish king conveniently died, which allowed Bismarck to conveniently remember of 2 German-speaking duchies in Denmark. Otto made a series of ridiculous requests to the Danes, which were in turn conveniently refused, giving Bismarck a reason to invade. Together with his good old pals, the Austrians, he took Schleswig and Holstein. After not being able to agree what to do with the duchies, Bismarck decided that he was no longer friends with Austria, so he started the Austro-Prussian War. Austrian military power was partnered with German states loyal to the empire. Bismarck had less manpower, but used his diplomatic skills to persuade the Italians into war. 7 weeks after the beginning of the war...
That's one thing I learned about von Bismarck, that he was really good at negotiating things to where it comes around to where he sees it fit, you know what I mean? I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but from the series that I got, he was really good at that there.
war, it was already the war. 7 weeks after the beginning of the war, it was already finished with the Prussians emerging victorious. It made the Germans go, damn, this was quick. It was lightning quick. We really blitzed them. You know what we should do? We should come up with a catchy name that will never in future be associated with something evil. The outcome of the war was Russian supremacy over other German states and the Austrians being forced to stay away from German affairs. The foundations for a unified Germany without Austria were set in place. We should point out at this moment that even though Bismarck wore a general's outfit, he never really led any of the battles. The Prussian military success was down to Rohn and Moltke. Rohn's ability to swiftly reorganize the army made up for the lack of manpower.
But isn't that a good way to run a government per se? Now, if you're not well versed on something, you appoint your best. Isn't that what it's supposed to be? So apparently he's also pretty good at appointing the right people to get his vibes going, you know. Let's see how his vibes are. Well, we know how it is because of the series I did before, but you know, let's see how they spin it in this one.
For the lack of manpower, Moltke was pretty much unstoppable, carefully picking and choosing his battles. Without these two, Bismarck's diplomatic skills would have been pointless. Back to the fun part, wars. The Austro-Prussian War made the tensions with France even greater. They were viewed as the enemy. French Emperor Napoleon, no, not that one, his nephew, wanted compensation for not entering the war. Bismarck, on the other hand, wanted German-speaking parts of Alsace and Lorraine. Starting a third war, however, would be a bit over the top in the views of Russia, without the P. Bismarck feared that Russians, together with Austria, would interfere in his final war. So, Otto made public a conversation between King Wilhelm and a French ambassador. He just altered it a bit before publishing, and by a bit,
I tell you, he ain't adverse to doing his little trickery, does he?
France declared war, which was great, because now Russia didn't have to. The Franco-Prussian War was a total disaster for the French. Moltke won battle after battle, managing to even capture the emperor. With a third victorious war in 7 years behind him, Bismarck was finally able to unify Germany. King of Prussia was now Emperor of Germany, with Bismarck being the first chancellor. The crowning took place in the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles, which was a huge FU to the French. Now remember how Austria were Otto's friends until they were not? The same thing happened in internal affairs. Bismarck took advantage of everyone and then just ditched them once he no longer needed them. His use of realpolitik meant that at times, ruthless pragmatism was used in all aspects of politics, earning him the nickname the Iron Chancellor. After the death of Emperor Wilhelm, the new guy in town really didn't like Otto and slowly forced him into retirement. The 75-year-old Bismarck stepped down and lived out his final 8 years watching over the newly shaped Europe formed under his iron fist. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to click on the bell icon.
Wow. This sort of seem a little bit not so much anti, but not quite favorable to Bismarck. It probably kind of showed more of his ruthless back of the scene stuff. But you know what though? What politician don't have to do that? And I'm not saying it's right, but you know that's the way man is in this place. You know, to get what you want, you got to be ruthless to a certain degree. Not per se killing people. Some people go that far, but playing the game of politics, man. You got to get ruthless and thing. But anyway, man, thank you all for watching this with me. Hope you all enjoyed this. You know, y'all take care of each other. All right, cool runnings.